Joining us now to discuss all of the fallout from this chaos is Curtis Houck. He's a managing editor over at NewsBusters, and he joins us now. Curtis, good to have you with us. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Good to be with you. This is wild.
It is totally wild. So within the span of about 48 hours, NBC has now announced that they have fired Ronna McDaniel, that she will no longer be an NBC News contributor. And they said the reason for this, according to NBC News chairman Cesar Conda, is that it's important that the newsroom be, quote, cohesive and aligned. And over the last few days, it has become clear this appointment undermines that goal. So am I reading this correctly? Are they saying diversity is our weakness?
Right. Yeah. And specifically that someone who represents half the country is not welcome on their airways. I mean, excuse me, people have issues with Ronna McDaniel. I mean, if you're going to, that's fine. But what you need to understand is she's not Michael Steele. She wasn't there to be Nicole Wallace. She would represent the mainstream Republican line, which is we're not voting for Joe Biden. So that's you
true.
know, it's NBC saying we don't want Trump voters on our airwaves. Nicole Wallace said the other day that it was sacred airwaves. NBC's airwaves are sacred, Vince. And so we couldn't have somebody pollute. Yeah, we couldn't have somebody pollute our airwaves with a viewpoint that's represented by half the country. And that's exactly where we were going with this, because MJ Lee of CNN asked KJP, a former MSNBC contributor herself, does somebody like this belong in our political discourse? And KJP said, well, this side was violent on January 6th, so, basically you be the judge.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty dangerous precedent.
I remember when Ronna McDaniel pulled out a gun and started shooting cops. I remember that. That was crazy that happened. That's a good point. All right, now I take it back. They should fire her.
Right. Exactly. And it's insane, just the level of juvenile, infantile childishness that we've been seeing. It's like these people need those Facebook statuses to say that they've been marked safe from Ronna McDaniel. I mean, Joe and Mika, the level of piousness to say, well, we weren't asked our opinion, but if we were, we would have said no way.
So it's amazing.
This is ridiculous.
It's amazing. It's unlike any other workplace that I'm aware of, where the employees all use the company airwaves to attack their own employer, to force them to make employment decisions, and then the employer does. How drunk on power are all of the MSNBC characters now? Like how crazy, to what extent are they going to try and stretch their wings and start demanding other things now?
Right, exactly. I mean, Laura Jarrett, she's a straight news journalist. She's Valerie Jarrett's kid, and they have absolutely no problem with this at all. I like to point that out because this goes beyond just being a commentator. They expect Valerie Jarrett's kid, who's like the best friend of the Obamas, to be a straight news journalist and report on legal affairs and fill in as co-host of Today and host the Saturday show. I mean, that is just ludicrous. I mean, they're going to be making all kinds of demands in the future. I don't see how, like, you fast forward to the RNC, like, are they going to carry people's speeches at the RNC? I kind of think that's an open question. Like, what are they going to do if employees start freaking out about it? Right. Yeah. Joy Reid's defense is Republicans have hosted my show before. Well, yes, it's Michael Steele. Okay. Nicole Wallace. I mean, yes, George W. Bush's war PR rep, come on.
Yes. Yeah, people who identify as Republicans. They're appearing on those shows. So you mentioned Valerie Jarrett's daughter works there, and then of course that reminded me, Bob Menendez's daughter works there too. Alicia Menendez.
Right, exactly.
She works at the network.
Bob Menendez's kid with Michael Steele and Simone Sanders. The three of them host a weekend show together. I mean, it's mind-blowing. They have and Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd worked for Tom Harkin, Amy Klobuchar's landlord. She had a party at her house for Jen Palmieri. Chuck Todd's wife received $2 million from Bernie Sanders. And none of that is ever disclosed when Chuck Todd hosted Meet the Press, that his wife's political strategy firm did business with Bernie Sanders and other Democrats. When we reported that at NewsBusters, Chuck Todd attacked us publicly saying, you guys are saying it's a crime to be married. And I'm saying our argument is no, We're just asking for transparency and disclosure, the kinds of things that you guys think should talk all the time about being at the forefront of journalism, which is correct, but you don't follow your own rules.
Well, I mean, like Jake Tapper, well, he's at CNN, but his wife forever was a big Planned Parenthood operative. I mean, there's all sorts of like twisted political influences wrapped up in television news. And, you know, MSNBC, they're one to talk. I mean, this idea that Ronna McDaniel, of all people, is like deeply offensive is crazy. They hired John Brennan to work there, the former CIA director who's on the record of lying to the American people about spying on the United States Senate and so many other things. And yet they hired him to be a truth teller at MSNBC. So it's like, it's a little rich to hear all of this whining.
Right. For them to say, oh, we do hire Republicans. Well, yes, you may think you're a Republican, but you're actually not. The only kind of Republican that's acceptable is a Biden, quote unquote, Biden Republican.
Right.
Or they just assume that you'll change, like Alyssa Farah. You know, they know that they'll hire somebody who will change their political view based on who's buttering their toast. So, I mean, that's really where we're at. It's David Jolly went on and said, well, you know, Nicole, you and I as Republicans, we stood up to our party on guns and gays and immigration and this and that. And it's like there's no issue left where you could just say you're any different from the Democrats.
Yeah, what is he even talking about? David Jolly, the Florida congressman guy? He's
right, exactly.
He's like he's as enthusiastically pro-Biden as anybody.
Right.
There's another piece that's been published in the last 24 hours out of the website Semaphore. They're now claiming that there's another backlash now within NBC where you have NBC reporters who are panicking that they may not be able to get scoops from Republicans anymore as a result of all of this chaos. I laughed I laughed when I read this, but what do you make of this idea, Curtis?
Well, if it isn't the consequences of our own actions, I really think that's where we're at, you know? I mean, maybe you should have thought about that first. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, if your network doesn't believe, just shy of the fact that Republicans are human beings, then why should anybody want to talk to you? If you don't view what we believe on any issue as legitimate, why should we talk to you?
Right.
Unless you've got an axe to grind or you're some disloyal, you know, Hill staffer, which many of them probably are, who have their own agendas to forward. But at the end of the day, this goes to show that they are not your friends. Again, you need to set aside the fact that you may not have liked Ronna McDaniel, but the point is she wasn't going to go on there and praise Joe Biden. You know, that's really where we were at. You know, Steve Hayes goes on there and says, well, a lot of you out there may not want Republicans on the air, and that's what the American public sees. But then he goes back to talking about Donald Trump and QAnon and all this, that, and the other. That's exactly the kind of thing that they want. They'll allow you like 5 or 10 seconds of sanity, but then it goes right back to what everyone else wants you to talk about, all sorts of crazy Steve Schmidt-like takes about Donald Trump, but there's no sort of policy or substance here.
You're allowed 5 to 10 seconds of sanity. I love that. That's hilarious. And true. That's why it's funny. So this idea that I do want to pause on this concept, though, that NBC reporters are now worried that Republicans may not talk to them.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh because, like, if you're a Republican communicator on Capitol Hill, if your job is to represent, say, a Republican senator or a congressman, is this really your first hint that NBC hates you? Was this moment you're like, oh my gosh, they mistreat Republicans? How brain dead are you that you didn't see it until this moment? Why is this the moment that you have Republican PR people who are going, wow, this seems like a real problem?
Right, exactly. Maybe some of these people worked for Ronna McDaniel before, and I guess the evils of NBC, the bias of NBC must not have touched anybody that you personally care about. I mean, that is an interesting point that, oh, this is what's going to cause you to grow a spine? Okay, all right. Well, I feel like policy issues should be where you really break and where the media is railroading you or dismissing anything and everything that has been uncovered about Hunter Biden, for example, you know, I mean, or pick an issue. The media have maligned and smeared Republicans, but when it comes to the head of the RNC, okay, I mean, it's good for you to finally wake up, but for this to be the thing that wakes you up, I kind of question your commitment to the cause. But
And this is why
it's too much to ask, maybe.
And I'll just offer some, some words of encouragement to NBC reporters right now. You have literally nothing to fear. It's not breaking news that NBC treats Republicans like garbage. That's not a new thing. The same Republicans who have been sucking up to you and giving you scoops that you can publish on NBCnews.com, they're going to keep doing that. They're going to keep sucking up to you. You literally have nothing to fear. That's going to keep happening.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you're from the Asa Hutchinson wing of the Republican Party, of which there's like 5 of you, you don't have anything to worry about. Yeah. I think, I mean, why should you shouldn't be talking to the New York Times. You shouldn't be talking to the Washington Post. You shouldn't be talking to NBC News. But what do we know? Let me,
I want to shift gears to another media topic because I think it's just so funny. Karine Jean-Pierre did a radio interview yesterday in North Carolina, and she was asked whether or not Joe Biden has dementia, and she panicked during the interview. She was like, she didn't even know how to handle it. She was like, I can't believe you would ask me that. Really? You can't believe he would ask you that? Take a listen to this.
When I told a number of people that I was talking to you today, it was interesting, though. They all said, would you please just ask her? Does the president have dementia? So before I move on from that, does he?
Mark, I can't even believe you're asking me this question. That is an incredibly offensive question to ask.
But people ask it.
Wait, no. Mark, you're taking us down this rabbit hole. Let me be very clear about this. For the past several years, the president's physician has laid out in a comprehensive way the president's health.
Okay, and she would go on to answer one more question about the economy before she rage quit the entire interview. So the question I have for you, Curtis Houck, is how did the White House end up even on this radio station? I checked the radio station's lineup, and our buddy Mark Levin is in their lineup. Don't you think, is the White House doing any advance work at all before they book Karine for these interviews?
Andrew Bates, what are you doing? I mean, Andrew Bates or somebody else has got to get a stern talking to or get the boot that you would sign up to this that is a Mark Levin affiliate. I mean, it's great for us, and Karine should be appearing on all kinds of news outlets and take actual questions. But the fact that this even happened to begin with, my goodness. And for her to be offended by it and act like it's somehow an affront to humanity that anybody would ask this question, I mean, this just shows how much of a bubble she's in. And you notice in her answer there, the part that she played, it was just a number of phrases just strung haphazardly together. She was so flustered. It's fun doing the White House transcripts from the briefing when I try to turn them around right away. They're just complete messes. Entire thoughts just stop mid-sentence, and then she starts another one, which just shows how much of a diversity hire she is. And also, how was she a reputable pundit on MSNBC for so many years? That she could appear on television on Morning Joe where segments go on for 20 minutes and that she had anything constructive to say. I mean, that is really... It's a huge question. Was did she somehow become dumber in the last 3-4 years? I mean, I don't really know, but it's stunning. The level of advanced work, the answer. I mean, there's so many things to love about this exchange.
Amazing.
Amazing. It is truly incredible. And then I also being asked about the economy. Did she talk about, the president's been clear and doing the work. And just because you repeat these phrases over and over again doesn't make them true.
The only thing I'll take objection to that you just said is that she's a diversity hire. In my view, she's exactly the same person as everybody else in the administration. There's no diversity whatsoever. They're all completely ineloquent, from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris to Karine Jean-Pierre.
Right.
They're just as empty-headed as they present all of this information, or lack thereof. Curtis Houck, as always, from NewsBusters, thank you, sir. Really appreciate your time today.